Hello, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Worldview on GBC. My name is Fidel Amachi Owusu. Today's topic is on inequality in Africa. Despite recent spikes of economic growth on the continent, and there is so much entrenched poverty, and that is alarmingly high in Africa. And the gap between the rich and the poor keeps increasing. And what is even worsening this phenomenon is the recent rise in the COVID-19 pandemic and how that has affected African economies around the continent. We've also had issues when countries have to implement austerity measures in order to adjust their economies to meet the growing demands on them. When you go to cities, you find so much gap between the rich and the poor. Just as there is so much difference between the living standards in those in the cities and those in the interior. And even in the interior, where we have some principal cities, the standard of living over there are better than other places. How do we overcome some of these things? How does that help Africa to reach its Agenda 63? And how do leaders around the continent come together to address these issues? The effect of this on crime, the effect of this on growth and unemployment. How can African leaders come together to tackle this head-on in order to build a better continent? Today, I am here with Mr. Cezar Kale. He's a former presidential staffer and a politician. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Fidel. It's a long time.
Yes, it's been a long time. I heard you are in your political field and you are doing a lot there.
Yeah. Okay. We are doing a lot. We have to go on hibernation to do a lot of things.
All right. That's good.
Behind the scene.
Good. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Also with us is our own veteran, Mr. Kuuku. He is a political commentator, and he's also spoken a lot widely on foreign affairs. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
It's been a while.
Yes. We need to take a rest.
Oh, okay.
Age is not becoming...
Oh, but you still look young anyway.
Yeah, thank you
all
very
right.
much.
Welcome, sir.
Yeah.
We move straight to Mr. Cezar. But even before that, as we do here always, this is Worldview. You have to share your views with us. And in so doing, you text messages. And also join us on Facebook. When you go to the Facebook search engine, you find where you can key in Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. When you key there, you join us live on Facebook. And you can send your comments through Facebook and through the text message on the phone number on the screen so that we can read for the consumption of all. It is Worldview. You have your views. Let us know your views. So I'll move straight to Mr. Cezar Kale. We will want to just go ahead and ask that for the purposes of education, what is inequality?
Well, inequality in simple terms, as you know. But let me start by saying a very good evening to all our cherished viewers across the country, particularly my friends who are watching me right now. I must say that, well, inequalities in general terms, as you know, refers to simply the unequal treatment to all human beings, you know, in terms of economic, in terms of everything. When you are not on the same scale, there's an inequality in the system. And so, if we talk about inequality in Africa, I think there's inequality, you know, across the globe. But as you rightly described, the pervasiveness of Africa, the African inequality is alarming. And I think that all African countries, as we speak now, are fighting this, you know, poisonous canker. And, you know, it has been more or less a colonial legacy that has heightened this phenomenon.
That is a good introduction for us. I think that he has really given us the meaning of inequality. And I'll come to you, Mr. Kuuku, your opening statement on this, even before we delve into the nitty-gritties, as Mr. Cezar has already introduced us to colonial past and all that. So, Mr. Kuuku.
Yes, I mean, like Kale has said, just for our younger viewers to have a better understanding, this is the national cake. And how do you share it? You know, it looks like some people take a big portion of the cake, and some people don't even get a piece of the cake. You know, and I think that is the bottom line for this conversation today.
Okay.
I would like to also go back to what you said earlier, that if a book that I was reading about West African trade from 1840 to 1920 was when the colonials were here, and they've employed a lot of black people. You go through the book, you find that they did not get any pension, they did not get any bonuses, they did not get any shareholding. So, you know, as for the injustice and inequality, it's been running around for a long time. And it looks like for some people, inequality has affected them so much that they think it's even normal. You know, poverty is normal. So in desperate areas like northern part of Ghana, you go to inner cities of Accra, and you see desperate situations that people don't seem to be too worried about it. It's a case of concern.
Honourable Cezar, if you look at everything that we're discussing here today, it boils down to people living comfortable lives as opposed to people who are suffering. And mostly people think that it's all about rural urban, but people don't even look within the cities. So we start here in Accra, and we start from Accra here. How do you see the situation when it comes to inequalities in African cities and the capitals?
Well, I must say that inequality within our communities and our society in general is now becoming it's precarious. The situation is an alarming proportion. And I must say that African leaders are now saddled with a lot of problems because of this inequality. Because you take Ghana, for instance, where we are discussing Africa, and Ghana is part of Africa. The inequality in Ghana is widening simply because of poverty. You see, the poverty situation in Ghana is so endemic that it has created, or it has spiraled the inequality situation to higher levels. For instance, you take the income levels of the individuals. There are many people in this country who are not employed. As a result, they have no income at all. Some people even end up, even within a month, some people don't even end up to even $5.
Wow.
Because the job is not there. And if the job is not there...
In the cities?
In the cities, yeah. In the cities here. In the cities here, look, these guys who you have been seeing the truck pictures and all those things, today as we speak, because of people who will say, oh, because of the corona pandemic, because of our austerity, measures put in place, the jobs are not there. People no more will even go to market and want people to carry their luggage, where they will be able to pay them something small, and they will earn maybe 10 cedi or 15 cedi. They will go and put maybe 5 cedi as susu. Then it will accumulate at the end of the month, he earns something. Today, the situation is not like it used to be. Because almost all African countries today, as we speak, is running an austerity economic, measures. And you see, when you are running an austerity measure in your economy, it means that government will be cutting its spending. It means that government is going to, ensure that the money in the system, money don't come into the system so much to be able to, reduce its debt burdens and expenditure. So when that happens, economic activities will shrink. And when the economic activities shrinks, it goes down to the ordinary man to rather impoverish him so much. You cannot earn even a cedi within a day. You go to the slums. I can remember when we were doing the Ayahuasca by-election. We went to a certain slum within the East Legon enclave. And I was so surprised. The young guys and young ladies we met, when we were talking to them, some of them said, look, they were masons. One man told us that he's a mason, an everyman. Now for the past week, he has not got a job to do. He goes out with his trowel, with his spirit measure, and all those things daily, and nobody will hire him. Why? Because the construction industry is almost collapsed. Government has not paid contractors. So that there will be that trickle-down effect, so the contractor can go to site, so they can hire these, artisans. And so forth and so forth, carpenters, steel benders, and all those things. So when that happens, the poverty situation now worsened, because he cannot even go to give the wife, the needed chop money to be able to put food, quality food on the table for the family. Meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, we have people who are becoming rich and richer every second.
This is not to cut you. Is it sometimes are we not unfair to those who are rich? Because, for instance, if I've invested my money and I'm getting the returns and someone is not finding a job, how is that my problem?
Yeah, that's why we were saying that government, it is a responsibility of the government to structure the economic activities or the economy in such a way that there will be flow of money. And when the money flows within the system, it has a trickle-down effect to the last person. So that multiplier effect will make everybody comfortable. But here is the case, if you owe a contractor 1 million cedis, you have not paid that contractor. Maybe that contractor is having maybe another private job doing where you'll be getting other monies anyway. But you have stifled that amount that would have gone down to pay cement dealers, to pay iron rod dealers, to pay, laborers who have worked, to pay market women who some people owe Gary and all those. Remember today, people credit even Gary. People credit rice, they credit tomatoes and all those things. And so if one person is paid a certain amount, there's a multiplier effect down there. So when that happens, the money spread all over, and everybody uses a little to turn itself to be able to also live.
That's Honourable Cezar. I'll come back to you. Mr. Kuuku.
Yes, sir.
You've lived across maybe a couple of generations. We had the post-independent generation, which you also experienced. And now we are into the Fourth Republic. How would you compare if you are talking about inequality? Because some argue that the fact that a country is poor doesn't mean it is unequal. If it is poor and resources are equitably shared, there is less inequality. But you can have a very rich country with so much inequality, some people will be suffering extremely and others will be having so much comfort.
Yes.
Now, if you compare these periods, the period after independence and this Fourth Republic, what do you see the difference?
The Fourth Republic is definitely a very sad time for us. The 60s were a bit better because you had government institutions that were not privatized and could afford to employ a lot of people and all that. So, but let me go back and say that this topic is a very complex topic. And if it wasn't, we would have been able to sort out this problem many years ago. You need a lot of problem-solving skills, you need pragmatism to solve it. Now let's go back a little bit to the 80s and the 90s when the IMF and the World Bank, in collaboration and partnership with African leaders, established NEPAD to look at how monies that governments make can trickle down to the bottom. 20, 25, 30 years on, it has not worked. Even though it has worked in certain countries like Mauritius and other parts of Africa, but in the sub-Saharan area, it is gone worse. People cannot go to the poor people have no access to health care because if you can't pay for NHIS cards, you cannot go to health care. Rich people have easy access to health care. Education is poor. They don't have microfinance. They don't have a lot of things, and therefore chronic and absolute what we call has become like a norm for a lot of people in Africa. Now it is time for the World Bank, IMF, UNDP, and all this.
Even before, those not to cut it, but even before we come to the solutions, you've also lived outside the country for a long time. You know what it is in Africa and in Europe. Comparatively, because there are also inequalities there. But comparatively, what do you see the difference?
Oh, as for UK and America, that is where we can compare. They have been able to work out their systems in a way that is near perfect, but not perfect. Policies are developed in a way that it hardly goes wrong. That means that the policy is not corrupt, the policy is coherent, and therefore results will come, and you don't lose too much money. You know, if your policy is wrong, so you put in $400 million for SHS schools, and there's no coherent scientific policy, and it goes wrong, you might lose half of that money. And that is why you constantly have to go by a policy that is coherent. And in UK, for example, the public sector and those who work with it are very well trained. They are not political. And therefore, when they develop documents, the documents are not skewed to politics or whatever. They don't do that. They do things that will accommodate for everybody and capture the poor, gender, disability, women's group. All these groups are captured in the system. So welfare state is very good. The NHS is an excellent hospital facility that you can work in if you are entitled to it, to benefit from it. Pension schemes are good. Land rights are good. You cannot go to the UK today and say that you have a land here and that somebody has encroached on land another foot. They established that 1,000 years ago, that 1,000 years ago you cannot mess around with land. They knew and they know the value of land.
Wow.
We have underestimated the land in Africa. It's worth more than $13 trillion. If we are able to get Land Commission to do the documentations right for people like you and myself to access loans with documents, we can use that to do small businesses. I think World Bank is doing some work there. And we need to encourage that so that women who work on farms in the north, in the savannah, most of them work, but they don't have any rights to the land.
So interesting. So interesting. I'll come back to you.
Yes,
I'll come back to you. Viewers, as we all said, we need your contributions. The number is 0243 158653. 0243 158653. You can text in and then bring in your views. Honourable Kale.
Yep.
In our part of the world, Africa, the poverty is so much that you need safety nets and interventions from government in order to, cushion the poor, so that the gap wouldn't be so much. The gap between the rich and the poor would be so much that it can breed crime and all that. In Africa, how has that failed?
Well, I must say that, to be very honest with you, in Africa, it has been more or less a rhetoric than a reality. Our political players, and for that matter, our governments, many of our governments in Africa have failed us. When they are looking for power, they will stand at the rooftop and give you a lot of flowering messages that will drive you to give them the power. After power has been given to them, a few people will become rich overnight, and the rest of the masses will go to hell. And that's why you see that currently, as you speak, in many of our government systems in all over Africa, there's high corruption. And because of corruption, it has, dissipated government revenue, or government spends so much on things that will not create jobs. So the masses, many of the youth today, if we talk of Ghana, for instance, the unemployment rate is almost 13%. The youth unemployment rate. But we're made to understand that government will ensure that a lot of unemployment will be created. And even we are told that more than 2-3 million jobs have been created. Yet the problem of unemployment is still on the ascendancy. So who is telling the truth? There's no truth. There's no sincerity in our governance system. And until our African leaders are sincere with people and follow the blueprint for which they wrote on to become president or take over power, I think it will ameliorate this whole inequality we are talking about. Because today in Ghana here, it's not, will it surprise you that you go to our medical facilities, our mothers, our wives have to be delivered on the floor. Are you not surprised about that? I mean, in the 21st century, nobody thinks that Ghana today, as we speak, will have people being delivered on the floor. You go to our hospitals, you see people who are seriously sick.
This is not to cut you. As topic that is on Africa.
Yes.
If you look at Ghana, Ghana seems to be among the better stories on the continent. So it means that the situation is very dire elsewhere.
So if Ghana is
experiencing this,
even you take the West Africa sub-region, for instance, in terms of inequality, from the experts and the literature we have read, Ghana is doing better.
Yes.
But I'm saying that if Ghana is even doing better, and I'm narrating all these issues to you,
it means
elsewhere. Now listen to these statistics. Oxfam actually estimates that just one of the richest men in Ghana earns more in a month than one of the poorest women could earn in 1,000 years. While 1,000 extra millionaires were created between 2006 and 2016.
in Ghana.
Yes, nearly 300,000 people could have been lifted out of poverty had inequality not increased during the period. So it's a precarious situation. You know, the inequality situation we are talking about is so alarming that, and you see, I thought that African governments, when they give them power, should put, their policy frameworks in such a way that it will actually, gradually, remove these inequalities in the system.
We will come to the prescriptions.
And
yeah,
as I've earlier on alluded, poverty is a major driver.
Yes.
Poverty.
Yes.
In all. Because food today in Ghana, some people take one meal a day. Here. And some people they have in abundance, you don't even know what to do with them. Some people don't have any quality health care. Even with the inception of a senior high school, our educational system is going backward. Even with the inception of a senior high school, free senior high school. You talk about road networks, it's alarming today. You talk about our unemployment situation, as I've already alluded to it. You talk about even water situation. And these perennial disasters like flood and all those things. Today, we are told, anytime Bangre Dam is going to be open, everybody is sitting on tenterhooks.
Yes, of course.
Because of the ripple effect. Why won't African leaders, including Ghana, knowing all these problems, inherent problems, will not create a policy framework to be able to curtail it?
We'll come back to that. Mr. Kukujan, one other driver to this inequality seems to be conflict. If you take the northeastern part of Nigeria, the Maduguri area, you come to Niger, Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, and what we can collectively refer to as the Sahel areas.
The Sahel region.
Yeah, you see a lot of insurgency and militancy going on there. Now the poor people already are in their situation, and then conflict comes to add up. How does that help in bridging the gap between the rich and the poor?
Just to add up to the point that in Accra, 2% of the persons who are from poverty. In the north, in the savannah, it's 70%. So regionally, there are huge disparities in what you say.
Wow.
So your question was that?
Yes, the conflicts, the contribution of conflict to this.
Yes, this conflicts thing, like we've said here before, has been the groups that were disturbing the Europeans and Americans, ISIS, Al-Shabaab, after the Libyan war, they've all moved down to the Sahel. And they've made things so difficult for our governments. You know, in Mali and Niger, if it is there, they just don't want to run the governments down. They could run the governments down any day. They are more trained, better secured, resilient to run the governments down. You understand? That's how dangerous this whole thing is. And that's why you have the French and the Americans around the Sahel trying to work out what to do. They need to find solutions to this problem.
But is that solving the inequality problem there?
Of course it's making it worse. It's worse. Those people within that area hardly speak to security agencies around there. They are constantly hiding in bushes and in caves and all that. I mean, how can you live a life? How can you live a life and breathe well? When you're constantly hiding and you have guys running route around. It's totally unacceptable. So we need to find out how this problem can be sorted out. My fear is that ISIS says that they don't believe in democracy. So if you are a country on the west coast of Africa that is practicing democracy, there are chances that they say, well, we don't like these guys, let's go look at them. we need to upbeat our security in all areas. At airports, at very sensitive areas, we must be visible in a way that anybody who has funny ideas in his head must think twice. That is what is going to make the people in the country also safe. They also feel assured that there's security enough to look after them. As of now, we just don't know where the next skirmishes is going to come from. We just don't know. But for us to be sure, if you go to the airport, for example, I need to see some military men. If you go to Gatwick, you see military men with Munich, you see with heavy guns around. Because they don't want to wait for the issue to happen before they intervene. They want to make sure it does not happen. Yeah. And we must try and do that here too. So, Khaled made a point about politicians and how they line their pockets and constantly line their pockets and constantly line their pockets. If you take the case study of Mr. Zuma, after the Rainbow Country, we all supported everybody to get rid of the white extremists there. They got out, gave it to Mr. Mandela, Mr. Mandela took it on, he gave it to Mr. Mbeki, I think, and then Mr. Jacob Zuma came on, the beginning of the mayhem. Corruption, corruption, corruption. In fact, the Minister for Finance came out to say that they lost about $13 billion in the time of Mr. Zuma. He even went as far as getting the Gupta family to choose a Minister for Finance. For the whole state was captured. The whole state of South Africa was captured.
State capture.
They captured the state. And you know, the politicians were killing rivals to get contracts and all sorts of things. You know, this is not what we felt for South Africa a few years back when we all started shouting that apartheid must be broken down. Kwame Nkrumah, they all fought for it. Everybody fought for it. Well, I'm very disappointed. I'm sure a lot of people are very disappointed. Now,
and incidentally, South Africa happens to be one of the countries with the huge gap in inequality.
Yes. Yeah, I think in
so
the African sub-region, it is the most unequal
country upon all the wealth.
And the money is that, yes. And you see, it is, you ask yourself, apparently, you only have to get into government in the ANC, and if you are not, you become a millionaire overnight.
Yeah.
When the whites left, they took over like
Anyway, some of our viewers have joined us, and one for Kuuku from La Paz says the main cause of inequalities in Africa, and for that matter Ghana, is due to our visionless leaders. They cannot plan or manage the economies. Our politicians are a disgrace. That is Kuuku from La Paz. And then notable primary causes of poverty: inadequate food and poor or limited access to clean water. Relocation in search of food and clean water drains limited resources, causing the poor to get poorer as they seek basic necessities for survival. Illiteracy fosters poverty. Additionally, the underlisted form the secondary causes of poverty in Africa. And these situations cause serious insecurity without a standing army. This is Reverend Eugene DeGraft Sampson. Thank you, Reverend. And then good evening, Mr. Host and your panelists. We thank GBC for this wonderful discussion. I am a plumber. For more than 3 months, nobody has called me for work.
Oh, you are.
I have 3 kids to take care of, including their mother.
Oh, you are.
And my own old lady who is 80 years. You did not add your name. You might never know. Anyway, this is Owusu answer from Asafufu Kumasi. Our leaders are greedy and they continue to waste our resources on things that are not profitable to us. Just look at the money being paid to Council of State members. Meanwhile, there are a lot of able youths out there without employment we keep on paying these old people who are close to their graves. When they are in opposition, they seem to have solutions to our problems. But when they assume office, they do different things. The former presidential staffer seems to have solutions to all our problems. That is Cezar. They say he seems to have solutions to all our problems. Anyway, just this matter. And then Thomas Kwame Asabri. Thomas, you do not add where you are texting from. Inequality in Africa is an undisputable creation of the African style of leadership. Political leaders in Africa promise their people heaven and deliver hell when voted into power. It be reduced, if it is reduced, Okay, African leaders should tailor their leadership styles to that of the advanced economies. Political campaign promises must not be mere rhetorics, but must be delivered to suit the whims and caprices of the electorate. Okay, that last one was from Thomas Kwame Asabri. Thank you, Thomas. And Cezar, we'll come to solutions, but even before that, some believe that you have a lot of solutions. And since we are not up to the prescription side yet, I would like to draw in this. Is it that when it comes to policy making, the African leader do not have or does not have sufficient policies to bridge this gap?
No, I don't think that is not the case. If you look at all African leaders, and for that matter their government, you look at their blueprint that brought them to power. Fantastic. You go through all their blueprints, that's their manifesto, whatever it is. Course, but the implementation has always been the problem.
Yeah, of course. They
tell you they'll do 1, 2, 3, and the next time they are doing different things altogether. Because if you promise the teeming youth of this country that Miller will come, everybody will get a job to do. And we may even create an enabling environment in such a way that we have to even import people to come to this country to work. Now you come to power, and you still have more than 12, almost 13% of the youth not employed. It's a security matter. And you see, one of the major even inequalities too that we have to also notice that even in the formal sector, the income disparity between workers in this country, and for that matter many African countries, is so bad. Because you have MDs, you have CEOs collecting 50,000 plus. Then the ordinary, worker, some of the laborers, they don't even receive up to 1,000 Ghana cedis a month. How do you cure this canker? And it has not started today, and it's still ongoing. You have our political class, whose salary, compare it to just the ordinary civil servants and all those things, there's a huge gap.
You made this not to cut you. You made mention of colonial legacy.
Colonial legacy.
When the Governor General in Gold Coast left, he was replaced with the head of state and head of government in the form of Kwame Nkrumah. So you come to meet this and say, oh, this is what he was taking. So you quietly sit there and take. And then you let the civil servant that you've also inherited from them also take what they are taking. Isn't it so?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The colonial legacy has actually affected us throughout years. Because they created the elitist class. Even within the political class, they have created the downtrodden and the elitist class. And it seems to have haunted us throughout ages. But at least, if our politicians or even our government, if they could be sincere with themselves, things could be changed. Because every government, before it comes to power, you see it drawing a very nice manifesto, telling you that when we come, we are going to reverse the wheel to ensure that there's at least inequality, in the, at least there's some equal treatment, equitable treatment of all persons within the system. But when they come, and when they start getting the largesse or whatever it is, the governance, the political system will enter their mind so much that they will forget what they have promised the ordinary Ghanaian.
You are in a better position to tell us what has been entering their minds. What exactly?
They are overwhelmed. You see, many African politicians, many African governments, when they come to power, instead of working hard to eradicate poverty, to bridge the gap, between the rich and the poor, they are rather thinking about their next elections. And once they are thinking about their next elections, they will be amassing wealth. Because they believe that the ordinary citizen is very gullible and very, vulnerable. So the moment it comes to elections and he just throws some small coins around, they will forget about all the poverty, all the bad rules, all the, the non-existence of, the water.
The massive corruption.
The massive corruption and all those unemployments that they'll forget. And that's what's our bane. That's what is happening in this country. Unless our politicians, or unless our leaders, they change that attitude, I don't think that inequality can be breached in Africa, for that matter. Even as I said, you see, in the Western world, they have been able to, as Mr. Kuuku said, see, their policy frameworks, they have been able to churn our policy framework that ensure that it's very transformational, and gradually it's bridging the gap. You go to US or you go to Europe today, they have what we call unemployment benefit. Today, in Ghana, we don't have such. Such that you see that when the country is even practicing an austerity economy, the poor will not suffer it so much. But here we are in Ghana, here we are in the West African sub-region, because of the austerity measures in various countries, and they are so-called COVID-19 pandemic, every citizen in West Africa today, in Africa sub-region today, the poor are suffering. And so to be able to, bridge the gap, they must be very sincere. As somebody, one of our callers or the texters who actually said that we must be speaking the truth. We must speak truth to power. Else it will continue unabated. Tomorrow, another party C or E also comes and he thinks that one MPP was in power, or when this government was in power, or one party ABC was in power, and they were doing this, people were clapping. So if people come for that, why won't that party also do the same thing? So the time has come for the trajectory to be changed.
Mr. Kuuku,
yes.
There is one country on our continent that is the biggest in terms of population and now in terms of the economy, and that is Nigeria. Fortunately or unfortunately for us, we are close to Nigeria, and whatever happens there seems to create a vortex for other African states that are around to also fail. Before the elections that brought in President Buhari, people were expecting a lot from him, that he's a no-nonsense man, he can put down measures. But it looks like Nigeria is now so much embroiled in unnecessary conflict and banditry and terrorism and all kinds of things, to the extent that the inequality in that country is so bad. And it seems to be a reflection of what is happening around the continent. Now, as a continent, how can leadership, what role should leadership play? Now you've entered into a prescriptive aspect of this discussion.
Right.
What role can leadership play in order to ensure that this gap is closed?
Right. To be a leader, you must be able to be thinking whilst you are standing. You must have ambassadorial skills. You must be able to be incisive, and all that goes with it. But you must have advisors around you who are clever, intelligent, and can suggest things to you that will make you move forward. Without that, the president cannot think all the time. He has too many things on his mind.
Of course.
So it is his third year and second year who will be dropping things into his ears. Now, the prescription that is being suggested is that the institutions have got to be strong and to work for the common man. Your institutions need to be very, very strong. Civil activism. People, not like politicians, but like people who see wrong things and even take governments to court, take ministers to court and wrongdoings to court. And in places like South Africa, I think constantly they taking, Mr. Zuma had about 300 cases against him in court. If he had known that he would be in prison at the time that he was president, or somebody told him, Mr. President, it is likely that you'll be in prison, he will tell the person, you are either mad or you are hallucinating. You see, today is in there. This should be a warning to all African heads of states that when you leave, other things will happen. So be very careful and do the right things. The Nigerians are not mentioned a lot in the documents that I'm reading, even though things are not looking too good. But they seem to be holding the fort. So their media has to be very strong. You leave them alone to work. The judiciary has got to be left alone. They have to be robust. The press has got to be free and provide good education for the people. You know, and angel funds for people like Mokola. You know, those in the markets are women who work in the markets. What sort of microfinance do they get to work? Somebody needs to have 1,000 cities to work. That has been bastardized. you can't get money from anywhere to work. Create a small farm in your backyard. You need 500 Ghana cedis. You can't get it. How do you expect these people to live? There are decisions that you cannot take out of the system. How bad it is, you must be able to find ways to restructure it, like the banks that were closed. The Americans did not close any banks, even though the money that were chopped was so much it could build this country 20 times over. But Mr. Obama said, look, let's restructure this place and punish these people who messed up. If you close the banks, where do you think the people are going to get money to work from? So Nigeria is still there. I remember Mr. Buhari going to see the Queen in England, and Mr. Cameron made a comment. Didn't think that the microphone would pick it, that the Nigerians are the most corrupt people on earth. You know what Mr. Buhari said? If you give us back all the money that is stashed here, we'll be all right. All the money that the Nigerians have stacked in there, give it back to us, and we'll be all right. So it's a complex matter. You know, people steal money, take it to England, buy houses, so that you get tier 2 visas for their children and their wives, and if there's trouble here, they all run away and go and stay there. We have to find ways around these things. You don't only tell somebody that you stole money, but you must find where the property is and take the property back from them.
Mr. Kale,
Yeah.
China, in a span of 30 years, was able to lift 500 million people out of poverty. The Communist Party, that has been there since 1949 in China, and had made reforms in the 70s, and in the 80s they taken off, were able to lift 500 million people out of poverty, which means there was this closure of gap that is unprecedented in international history. They were able to achieve it. Deng Xiaoping started these reforms. Other leaders took over. How does the role of leadership in making sure that this gap is closed? What's your take on this?
Yeah, you see, you are bringing the China success story just to let people know that if we want to also do, we can do it. They have been very disciplined. And you see, their governance system is different from especially African governance system. This democracy has come to crush a lot of lofty, ideas that could progress from one stage to the other. But because of periodic elections in Africa, for that matter, our democracy, 4-year, 4-year, 8-year term, today, as we speak, there are a lot of community E-blocks, senior high E-blocks in the bush. There are a lot of health infrastructure in the bush. Lack of continuity. China, as we were talking about, for them, one-party state, there's continuity throughout, and they are very disciplined. Corruption, you can't do corruption in China. So African leaders, if we want to get there, we have to stop this corruption. We have to stop this kind of...
this is not because just about a month ago, two officials who were corrupt were executed.
Yes. Yes.
Execution
Yes.
for corruption.
African leaders need a structural economic transformation rather than the growth of GDP. If we want to talk, so our GDP growth is this, our inflation is that. All those things are not the solution. African leaders must provide jobs that are so needed to support livelihood across the continent, and that will bridge the gap. A shift from low to high productive, activity in Africa will also do the trick. Africa, in general, is agrarian, community. So why don't we actually do a sustained agricultural transformation? Because if we take Ghana, for instance, Ghana, actually, our economy is driven by agric. Why won't government deliberately, bring policies, clear-cut policies, and not this kind of, planting for food and job. That it has now, there's no food security. That's why we are importing maize all over. That is not. We need progressive fiscal policies to address inequalities and financing provision of adequate public services and structural transformation. Do you know that the taxes in this country and in many African countries are killing? We need progressive tax, not regressive tax. In South Africa, do you know the reason why, in fact, they are saying that it is the most unequal African country that we have today. And you see the reflections. That's why we are having xenophobia. the youth think that some
foreigners are
immigrants
taking their jobs.
have come to take their jobs. But that's the reality. Because people have pocketed the money. People have diverted the funds of the country. And you see that wherever there's inequality, there's financial crisis all the time.
Of course.
We have conflicts. We have increase in crime rates. Now, today, terrorism is springing out, across the Sahel region because of this inequality and poverty.
Yeah.
We have political instability. Today, we have witnessed two already coup in the sub-region. We have Mali and Guinea. So African leaders must learn from all these. The Chinese just did not get up one day and succeeded. When they started with their economic recovery program, it was like a nation crusade. Everybody embraced it. And remember in the 1980 to 1990, they went into serious agriculture. And they said that, look, all Chinese living anywhere in the world must patronize Chinese commodities, be it food, if they are producing rice, if they are producing clothing or whatever it is, whatever you are, you must patronize it. And with that patriotism and commitment, they are where they are today. If African countries can do that, then we need that spirit, we need that sincerity, we need that hard work. Short from this, we will continue to be where we are today. And look, they should not take the younger generation for granted. If African leaders do not sit up and bridge the gap of this inequality, the Jacob Zuma's own will be small. You saw how he was humiliated in the dire embers of his government. And today he's in prison. I don't know why he has been released or he's still there.
He's been released on
humanitarian grounds. It will be, and you heard one pastor. You heard the pastor that preached.
Yeah.
So we mustn't downplay the issue. You see, the leaders are cashing on the vulnerability and gullibility of the citizens, and they are doing whatever they want to do. And it's widening the gap of inequalities, widening the gap of poverty. How? How can the rich person the rich person who make more money in a month than a poor woman making in 1,000 years? I mean, this is from the Oxfam report.
Okay, we've been joined by some of our viewers. Kofi Kale says this: Ghana and the rest of Africa can never be developed so far as we continue to build this country with so-called persons with PhD, degree and masters, etc. This is because our level of education is all about learning how to speak English and get into politics and steal. Brother, push people with lower level of education and see how they will perform. Kofi Kale. Kofi Kale, we did not know where you were texting from. And then, good evening. Will inequality ever reduce in Africa? Absolutely no. It appears we are cursed. Our political class are greedy and nothing will ever change. Just look at their salaries. Most of the young guys parading themselves as politicians have the mentality of coming to steal at the expense of the ordinary. You can talk all day, but they will continue to loot until punitive measures are taken against them. Corrupt leadership is the problem, period. God save Africa. Abukari Bashiru. I'm enjoying the program. Good evening. Joshua from inside Tema. Good evening, Joshua. Good evening. God bless you. 4% of salary workers increment and about 70% for politicians in Ghana. God have mercy on us and change the minds of the greedy leaders of ours. From Elohim. Accountability is key to our survival, and none of our institutions are working in Ghana. That is Kuuku from La Paz once again. And then this is Isa Ibrahim. He says, African leaders are honoring God with their mouth, but in their hearts is far away from God. Where are they going to get wisdom to rule the continent correctly? The fear of God is not found anywhere in the land. That is Isa Ibrahim. Mr. Gugujani, we are behind time,
yes,
so
yes.
you have found your last word and your solutions or way forward for Africa in order to close the gap between the rich and the poor.
Okay, I only want to make a quick comment about the democracy that we are practicing and whether it will work.
You have 5 minutes.
You know, when President Nixon was leaving after the independence, somebody walked behind him and asked, will it work? And I'm seeing that this democracy that we are practicing is not working. And it's going to create a whole lot of problems for us till we are able to reconfigure what we mean by democracy. You know, the British, 300 years ago when they started democracy, they were very crude. They were very draconian in what they did. People you find in Australia, all these 5 people you find in Australia, were British people who misbehaved and were put in the boat and thrown out of the country. Psychiatric hospitals are 100. If you stole an apple, you'll be kept in there for a very long time, maybe at the Majesty's pleasure. So they were able to grind the people in a way that when they see a policeman walking, they are more afraid of the police than the soldier man. You see how they have developed their democracy? We haven't done that. So we quickly want to adapt what they say, democracy, being coming, no being coming. What do you want being coming? Go and spend the streets of London and Staffordshire. They'll put you in a psychiatric hospital in prison for disturbing the peace. So we need to be able to ask ourselves, what exactly do you want to do with the African country, our culture and heritage put together to move forward? Moving forward, the institutions are very, very important. President Obama said that before. Strong men don't matter anymore. The institutions are what you need. Now, China did something very, very interesting. They sent about 100,000 students to America, to the best universities, to become public servants, and come back and manage the MDAs and pay them well. Our public servants, some of them after finishing university, they've been working there for 30 years. Some of them have read the book before. You know, so they are the people who hold the system. Their counterparts is the World Bank, UNDP, all these agencies come to talk to them about policy. And if they see that you are not on top of your policy, they will prescribe something for you. And that's what the World Bank has done over years. And they've realized that the policies that they prescribe, like bastardizing the state institutions and all that they suggested, has not worked. We need to change the game. So let's hope that a word to the wise is always enough. Thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Kale, please, your last word and the way forward.
Yeah, I think my last statement will be on the fact that we have not talked about gender inequality. I read a certain report that says that gender parity stands at 0.58. The 0.58. One will be full parity. And that 70% of women in Africa are excluded financially. We have about $42 billion US dollars financing gap between men and women from the McKinsey's power parity report. And so if we continue to widen the gap between men and women, it's a very, very dangerous, thing to do. And so I think that's, as Mr. Kuuku said, inequality, yes, we know there can never be equality in the whole universe or the globe. But at least there should be some,
respite.
Respite. There should be some, bridging of gap between the poor
and the rich.
Because alarming rate at which the rich is becoming rich is so much, and that is driving many of the crimes rate in the world today. Because some people do not understand why some people continuously to become rich, whilst they cannot even get jobs to do. So they will take up arms.
Or to eat.
They will take up arms to go and rob people. They want to even indulge in ritual murders, especially you have seen some of our youth today engage in ritual murders ostensibly to become rich. You will see some of our people who want to engage themselves in terrorism. Today, they are Sahel with them. They have recruited many of the young, the young guys, the youth who are not doing anything.
They pay them dollars.
And they pay them huge sums of money, engaging them in terrorism. And they are eliminating lives every now and then. So our leaders should come back to their consciousness. And our leaders should engage in good governance. It should not just be rhetoric. It should be, physically done.
Walk the talk.
They should walk the talk, not just rhetoric. And that is the only way that can actually stabilize the continent from all these, mishaps you are talking about?
Honourable Cezar Kale. This is from Kumtakunti from Tema. Inequality is an absolute mental defect that can be changed. Until the black African can admit that they are mentally defected and the wow. Well, let me move to the next message. This is not healthy. I really respect the contributions of your panelists. The closure of the financial institutions has really caused the country a great disincentive than expected. How can a country spend $2 billion on tomato and frozen chicken, more than $1.5 billion on syndicated cocoa loan? That is from Jay. Your name is just Jay, and you are not adding where you are texting from. Okay. Good evening. I am Paul from Ajay Kojo. The problems of Africa is not about our leadership. It is about us. Okay, that's from Paul. And then good evening, panelists. I am Timothy, well known with the name Prof, and watching from Kaswa. The bridge between the rich and the poor will continue to widen if corruption and dishonesty is not curtailed. This runs from all institutions, individuals, politicians, the poor, and all. The poor are even a cause. Everyone is at fault, and we all need to change our ways to bridge that gap. Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Just enjoying the discussion in the studio. Bogbila West from West Hills small area. Thank you, Bogbila. And then hermetic hypothesis is Africa's problem. From Clinton Mampong Ashanti. Clinton, maybe you would like to break things down for the consumption of all. Anyway, the leaders of Africa are corrupt. They only think of themselves and their families. Due to that, they ignore the grievances of the citizen. This is Cyril Bueno from Adan. This brings us to the end of our discussion. I'm your host, and my name is Fidel Amache Owusu. I was with Honourable Cezar Kale. He's a former presidential staffer, and he has been with us from time to time, contributing to the discussion. He's also a politician. And then Mr. Kuuku, he has also been with us from time to time. He's a veteran on this program, and he's a political commentator and talks expansively on international affairs. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. And viewers, we thank you all those who send the messages. We thank you all for joining us. Meet us same time next week. Thank you.